Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining ARC's weekly Fireside Chat. Welcome, everyone. Today, we will be talking about youth justice reimagining, what moving youth out of LA juvenile probation means for LA County. This is something that is huge, that is powerful, that has been being worked on by some amazing youth leaders that you will get to know today. But before I introduce them, as always, I'd like to give a few instructions for everyone that are on computers. So if you look to the bottom of your screen, if you move your cursor down, you'll be able to see several icons. One of the icons says chat and one says Q&A. If you'd like to be able to communicate directly with any one of our panelists or ask questions, please do so by putting your questions in either the chat or the Q&A. And as time permits, we will definitely answer your questions. Again, thank you all for joining. And now I'd like to get to these amazing human beings that are doing this amazing work for our young people in LA County. I must say this, LA City and LA County are literally laying out a roadmap for every city across this nation to follow. Empowering youth leadership is one of the #1 things we need to be doing, not just in LA, but in every city and county across this nation, as they are our next leaders. Without further ado, we have on our panel Nicole Brown, Senior Policy Associate of the Urban Peace Institute, our very own Kent Mendoza, Manager of Policy and Community Organizing here for ARC. Ronnie, I always mess up Ronnie's last name, and he just corrected me not even 5 minutes ago. Villeda, Policy and Communication Organizing Intern for now. There may be some changes coming on that sometime soon. Anthony Robles, Organizer at the Youth Justice Coalition right here in Los Angeles. And Melinda Kakani, Senior Policy Associate, Children's Defense Fund here in California, one of our amazing partners. So to begin with, Nicole, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work with the Urban Peace Institute?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Nicole Brown, as you said, and I work at the Urban Peace Institute as a policy associate. So our mission at the Urban Peace Institute is really to achieve safety for the communities most impacted by violence. And we do that through the transformations of individuals, neighborhoods, communities, and systems. But the majority of my work really is part of Los Angeles Youth Uprising, which I'm sure everyone else is going to talk a whole bunch more about, which is, trying to transform our juvenile justice system. And I'll just say, from the perspective of urban peace, one of the reasons why this is so important is because we know that the earlier we can keep our young people from getting into the juvenile and criminal justice system, that is really going to be an important part of achieving true public safety in all of our communities affected by violence, as so often contact with that system can produce so many poor outcomes rather than really flipping that on its head and getting youth the support and empowerment that they need. So that's kind of how this all fits together with Urban Peace, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Thank you so much for that, Nicole. Kent, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your youth justice work with LA Youth Uprising? Can we see that t-shirt you're wearing, by the way? You got to break me off with them t-shirts, buddy. There you go.
So thanks, Sam. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Kent Mendoza, Policy Manager here at ARC. And I would say that I was in this process, in this role, to lay up the coalition that Nicole just mentioned. I think that it was a great role that we played because, we bring our youth to these spaces where, they were able to really center their voices and, really, learn from what they want. And I think that that's what's reflected in Layup. And that's what we do at Layup. We centered our youth voices and, in the Youth Justice Reimagined thing, we contributed from beginning to the end. So it was just great to be part of that process from beginning to the end, and knowing that we were able to have a say in the table, and having all these young people within Layup Coalition and ARC, really being the leaders in this movement is what really got us to that change in LA County. So yeah, so I'm glad to be part of this conversation and glad to be part of Layup.
Hey, thank you, Ken. Appreciate you. Make sure I get a T-shirt. If not, I'm locking you out the office. Ronnie, could you take a minute to introduce yourself and how you're doing, and tell us a little bit about your youth justice work with Layup?
Thanks, Sam. My name is Ronaldo Villeda. As Sam just said, I am a policy and community organizing intern. My work within Layup has really just been as a youth leader, using my lived experience in these processes to make sure that youth voices are centered, and you're really just advocating on behalf of myself and those I left behind to make sure that the system moving forward provides real solutions for us and innovative ways to rehabilitate.
Hey, thank you, Ronnie. Appreciate you, brother. Anthony, could you introduce yourself? How you doing? And tell us a little bit about your work with the Youth Justice Coalition.
Yeah, hey everybody, good afternoon. So my name is Anthony Robles. I'm the organizer with the Youth Justice Coalition out here in LA. And we work to end youth incarceration and all incarceration. And so this step that we've just taken, this huge victory that we've just had in our county to move young people out of probation and into a youth development department, something we've been fighting for a long time, and kind of surreal that we're here. And we're here in LA County. Like you said, Sam, in the beginning, LA City and county are like kind of paving the way and redesigning what justice looks like, and the rest of the country will probably follow, because we designed the current injustice system, whether it's militarized policing or supermax jails or whatever it is, gang profiling, all that. Almost all of it came out of LA, and now we're redesigning it. And so it's work that we've been doing for a long time. Big shout out to all the young people from the organizations within Layup, really led this work. Really strong voices that I think really pushed us forward, because it's one thing to have adults, talking to the Board of Supervisors or things like that, but when you have a powerful group of young people who are passionate about this, I think it keeps us all energized and shows that this is who's being affected by the policies that they make every day. And so I think that's what helped propel us in getting this victory. There's still a lot of work to be done, so looking forward to working with the Layup Coalition and just making sure this becomes a reality, because even though it's on paper right now, we still got to make it a reality, and so it's going to be a big fight ahead of us.
Hey, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate that, Anthony. Melinda, can you introduce yourself and how you're doing in your work with the California Children's Defense Fund, one of our partners, amazing organization, but could you tell us a little bit about your work there?
Sure. As Sam said, my name is Melinda Kakani, and I'm a senior policy associate with the Youth Justice team at Children's Defense Fund California. We are one of 4 policy teams that are really working towards improving the trajectory of young people's lives. So there is health justice, economic justice, education justice, and then I'm with youth justice. And really focusing with a movement lawyering lens, standing alongside impacted communities to really wrestle power away from gatekeepers, people who have held this power for far too long and used it for the benefit of far too few. And I think that that's the work that we're doing within Layup as well, is really challenging probation and systems of law enforcement that have caused so much trauma to the young people of LA County, and creating a system that is rooted in youth development, in accountability and transparency, and just a real commitment to the community and recognizing the strength in these communities.
Thank you so much for that, Melinda. So this is a historic move. This is like huge. And I don't think like many people understand, 2 weeks ago, the LA Board of Supervisors moved to permanently transition all LA youth out of the county juvenile probation and into a new department of youth development that will be focused on care, not punishment. For our audience, who may not be as familiar, can you tell us why is this historic? And let's start with you, Nicole.
I mean, I just want to say that, I want to hear what my colleagues have to say too, because I feel like folks have been working for this for so long. But I would just say, I mean, this is historic because we are the largest county in the country. We have one of the largest juvenile justice systems in the country. And as Millie said, for a long time, we haven't really been focused on what are the outcomes of well-being for young people. And that is what we need to focus on. And this is an opportunity to do that and to be able to direct our resources to making sure that happens. So that's why it's so historic for me. And also, as we've already talked about, being able, as the whole country kind of grapples with how we can redefine our systems of what really make us safe. You know, this is just an opportunity for all of us to learn together with that focus of the well-being of young people and communities as the center. So that is what I'm excited about. And I think that's why it's so groundbreaking. LA County, I always say this, and I don't even remember where I heard it, so somebody can check me if I'm wrong, but I heard if we were a state, we would be the 8th largest state in the United States. So when we do something, it's a big move, and it's something that everybody across the country can look at and learn from. So that's why I'm so excited to make it a reality.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Kent, can you tell us why is this move historic?
I would say thank you. I would say it's very historic because what this means that in the future we will no longer have youth experience things that I experienced when I was a youngster, things that Anthony or Ronnie experienced when we were young people, right? Like now what we're asking for is we're going to create a whole different infrastructure that is going to really focus on the youth competencies, really focus on the youth, development and growth, because it's historic because the system, for many years has, responded to youth behavior by putting them in a cell and then putting them in camps, or when they get out of camp, put them on probation house, or, all these little things that we're supposed to address these issues, right, of behaviors or whatever, but it hasn't done that. So, it's historic because it's now going to create a different approach to how we look at youth justice in LA County. And it's really going to center their growth and the leadership and the development and really try to get to the root of the issues. And also it's historic because, like Nicole said, we in LA County, we have some of the largest departments of punishment, if we would say like that, right? We have the largest district attorney's office. We have the largest sheriff departments, department, right? We have the largest probation department, right? With a big budget, so it's historic because whatever we make happen here, whatever we can make possible here, other people can look at us and make it possible in their places. This is LA County, like Nicole said, one of those counties that is rich in a lot of things, but also it's one of the leaders in a lot of these issues that we're talking about when it comes to incarceration and all those things. So it's historic because it's a monumental victory for a lot of us, and and especially for the youth that we'll no longer have to go through this system once we put this other new model in place. So it's very historic, and personally for me it's important for me because I've been in this system. I was invested many dollars in my incarceration, so I don't want that to happen no more. So that's why it's important. So I'll pass it to anybody else that wants to add.
Thank you, Kent. Anthony, why is this move, in your opinion, historic?
It's historic for a lot of reasons. A lot of the reasons that were just said, and also just think about all the people that have throughout the decades before us who have fought for a better LA for young people. The people who fought against jails, the mothers in East LA who fought against the jail and won because they knew they were trying to build a jail for their sons. That was decades ago. And just all the things that led up to where we're at now. And I just want to appreciate all the people that fought for this, and some might not be here to see this. Some might be here to see this and are probably celebrating that, their work wasn't for nothing. And I know when YJC started in 2003, it started as a coalition of young people and youth advocates who with one goal, had one goal in mind, to end youth incarceration in LA. And throughout time, you know, that evolved into the LA for Youth campaign, where it turned in the 1% campaign, and then eventually the 5% campaign. We're trying to take 5% of suppression dollars from the sheriff's department, probation, sorry for the noise around me, the district attorney's office, and at the city level, LAPD and the city's attorney's office, and reinvest that into youth development and create a youth development department at the city and county levels. And that never got anywhere. And then just like, I don't know, out of nowhere, the last 2 years, you know, or 3 years, layup formed, and work just started really just moving. It just kind of like snowballed, and you just feel the change happening, see the change happening. The board started coming around, and all of a sudden they create the Youth Justice Work Group, and, you know, now we're here, and they're proposing to eliminate probation. I think it's historic because this institution, juvenile probation, takes over $500 million of our tax dollars. And it costs $800,000 right now to incarcerate a young person. And right now we have the lowest incarceration levels for young people we've seen in a long time, maybe ever, I don't know. But it's definitely been a long time in recent memory. In 2007, there was, on any given day, about 2,000 young people incarcerated in the camps and halls. And the probation's budget, juvenile probation's budget, was like $100-200 million. And you fast forward to today, those numbers have been cut by like between 70 and 80%, yet their budget has more than doubled in that time. And so one of the big things in the motion that I think is really historic is shifting $75 million off the bat from juvenile probation into youth development. And I think that's huge because that's a large chunk of their money. And, you know, that shows the commitment, and that this will be real because of that money that's being redirected, which has been so hard to get all along. So I think for all those reasons, it's historic.
All right, thank you, Anthony. Appreciate it. Melinda, what does it mean to pivot to a system of youth development and not punishment? And why is this move necessary? And always, like, broader picture, not just LA, but LA is leading the way, biggest system, et cetera, but what does this mean to, let's say, kids that are in Louisiana, if they follow suit with what we do?
You know, to me, it really means this is a response to the call to defund this culture of policing. It means that we, as a county, are finally acknowledging the generations of trauma unleashed by a system that has really preyed on communities of color. You know, the board has spent decades trying to reform, trying to improve, you know, trying to change this institution that is probation. And I think, thankfully, they have realized that you cannot simply reform a system that is so flawed. You know, I think it was Mark Ridley Thomas who referred to it as fundamentally flawed. But it's a system that's really rooted in white supremacy, that's rooted in racism, that's rooted in paternalism. And, you know, a system that wasn't designed to care for people can never then care for people. And so I think, you know, in terms of why this is so necessary, it's, you know, we have just caused far too much harm. And while I'm sure some of it was, you know, intentionally created, because that is what is at the root of this system, we are finally at a point in our country, in our county, you know, in our state, where we are recognizing that this can't continue to go on. You know, it really is a moment of reckoning.
Hey, thank you, Melinda. Ronnie, in your opinion, pivoting from a system that's based on punishment to one that's based on youth development, why is this a necessary move? I mean, to us, it's like obvious because of our experiences and what we've seen. But imagine people that just don't see the connection.
Well, I truly believe that pivoting to a system that's rooted in youth development will begin to actually address the underlying trauma that youth have who currently reside in our system. My experiences within, as well as, you know, Kent's and us who've been through the juvenile justice system, have been one of just punitive punishment. And I really do think that we're doing a disservice to youth. We're not allowing them to really become who they're destined to be. A lot of youth become lost, they become hopeless within our system, and it perpetuates this cycle of recidivism, right? And probation just doesn't know how to understand the complex nuances of youth development the way that we do, the way that we understand it. It's necessary to start to invest in our youth and our communities and move away from this motto of just incarceration. I mean, for me personally, as someone who was facing life in prison at 17, to be able to be a part of this process is one humbling, but also it shows me that my voice matters, and this has been a part of my journey as well. The move is necessary because it hasn't been done before. This is the first time. It's historic, and we hold the power to now influence on a national level what rehabilitation looks like for youth.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you. So the initial investment into youth development will be $75 million, as Anthony said, $75 million LA tax dollars. What are the kinds of initiatives of care that money will be used for? Nicole, could you share first, and I'll just let me go through the panel.
I think that, I mean, in some ways we'll build it together, right? It remains to be seen, but I know that the idea, as it's presented in the report of Youth Justice Reimagined, is for $55 million to go towards community-based organizations and for a variety and a continuum of youth development support. So from pre-arrest diversion, getting more supports in schools, so to try to break the school to jail track, re-entry, and everything in between. And so like I said, this is just launching, but it really will go towards a variety of different things. As you know, we need to be looking this holistically, and also I think there's recognition that building up an ecosystem of community-based youth development is extremely important, as we also build up the infrastructure within the county to be able to support and coordinate that.
Thank you. Melinda, can you share with us what are some of the type of initiatives of care that this $75 million will and I'll literally say this, will buy our youth that we want to make sure come home as the best version of themselves?
I mean, I think this $75 million is just the beginning, right? It is a tiny part of the $500 million that goes to probation currently to incarcerate, surveil, and punish our young people. So it really is about creating an infrastructure that is entirely different, right? That it is rooted in the voices of impacted people. It is rooted in really identifying what the needs of community and young people are. And so I think that, when we talk about, initiatives that revolve around like care and support, it's for the first time we are prioritizing those things. Like that is the lens with which every one of these dollars is going to be used towards. If we were talking about building a collaborative of young people who are talking about what it is that they need and using those ideas to build on, to create this structure on, like that's the most like fundamental piece of this infrastructure. So I think it's rooted in something entirely different. And this $75 million is going to an entire infrastructure that is dedicated to care, support, and strength.
Thank you so much, Melinda. Kent, what can you imagine some of the initiatives for this care for the $75 million? You went through the juvenile system, as did Anthony and Ronnie, and I'm going to talk to them each. What do you imagine some of the type of initiatives that will be used?
I think there's a lot of things, we're gonna bring to life out of this vision and model. But I think some of the main ones that I would say that are very important to this model, it will be, creating youth empowerment support teams throughout the process. And that's in short term, it'll be YES teams. And these are basically are gonna be support teams that will help, just information sharing, collaborating throughout, the legal process and through every step of the way of the kid that is going through this system, and to really just change the way this system makes decisions, and being more inclusive and understanding of the youth that are going through this new model. I think that another thing will be great that is gonna come out of this, that is a great investment, is that we're gonna create a youth development network, which is gonna be, a bunch of organizations that are, one of the things that we found in this county is that there's a lot of organizations in the community that currently are providing services to people, whether it fits through tattoo removal, housing, job, career, whatever, right? A lot of organizations do that in LA County, but there's still no real infrastructure that could help all of these networks really support young people. So I think that another great thing that is going to come out of this is this network that is going to really just support organizations to really, make them more than just this organization that provides service, but actually work with the youth and really work with this new mission, in this new vision. Because another thing that we wanted to ensure is that we are community, led, and that there's a lot of community participation in all of this, these processes. So I think those are two things that are going to come out that are great about this thing: the just empowerment, the youth empowerment teams that will help throughout the whole process, and the youth in the infrastructure that we're trying to create up around reentry for all of these individuals that are going to be in this new model. And also credible messengers, having people that are like myself, like Anthony, like Ronnie, to be employed and be part of this process as credible messengers. We have real life experience that a lot of times it doesn't have a degree, but it's real life experience that can literally help guide how we should be approaching our youth and how we can mentor them, how we can really create real cultures of healing and trust and accountability that don't require pepper spray, don't require cells and solitary confinement, and I think the credible messengers, investing in a group of people that can be in this process all around, it's another big thing that comes out of this. And like I said, this is just the beginning. This is that's still gonna happen within a 5-year phase, so it's gonna take a while, but the goal is to eventually make that 75 million more than 75 million, right? And making it more back into the community. It's reinvestment at the same time, so yeah.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you. So before I move on to Anthony, Ronnie, our amazing partner, Nicole from the Urban Peace Institute has to depart. Thank you, Nicole. Everybody, thank Nicole for being here. Before you depart, is there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience before you go? I want to be mindful of you and respectful of your time, though.
No, just thank you so much for having me, and I can't express what an amazing partner ARC is, and everyone, the core of Layup, and I'm excited to just make this happen, right? Like that's the next step. And I also just, want to emphasize, I think, build off what Kent just said about like community involvement. Like for many of you listening, like your experiences is a wealth of expertise around, what we need to change and what, how we can move forward together. And so I think that, folks, ARC is going to be up in it, and even people that aren't part of ARC, right? But like continue to be involved, and there's going to be community engagement. Community engagement is key. And so I hope that, especially if you're moved and inspired by this, that folks will get involved and continue, because we're going to be building this all together, right? So we need as many hands as possible. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for your commitment to our young people.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and great weekend, everyone.
All right, take care. Stay safe. Anthony, what do you see the $75 million that you previously mentioned? What kinds of initiatives of care do you see that money buying for our youth that may end up in this system?
Yeah, I think, everybody said it all already. I think that was a great breakdown by Kent with the yes teams and all that. And I know I wish Nicole didn't leave right now, because Nicole and some of the youth leaders from Layup have been working on a resource map, trying to map all like the youth development services and resources out there across the entire county, which is a huge undertaking. But it's filling up, and we're trying to use that to present that as like this is where we can scale up. There's already a bunch of organizations, big, small, all over the county that do different things, that build up different youth development competencies all across the county that we can start investing in immediately and scale up and start coordinating That way young people have a home, they know where to go, they know what the services around them are. So I think, you know, just building up the community-based organizations that are doing this youth work, and then, you know, allowing for more to come up and grow and things like that. And like Kent was saying, like the Peace Builders, incredible messengers, to hire more to not only is it employment, but it's also a mentorship for young people. And so it's almost like a win-win all around. And I just remember that, you know, growing up, the things I were invested in that still are invested in, just like policing and helicopters over your block every night. And there used to be a police car sitting every weekend at night, every evening, would just sit on the dead end, just watching us. Imagine if instead of having a police officer just sitting there watching us on a dead end, looking at us like we're animals, if we had like some peace builders, some intervention workers, some youth workers coming on our block and talking to us or showing us or getting us into different activities and smoking and drinking, if we can invest in that, you know, young people will never have to make contact with law enforcement, won't end up in these systems at all. And when they do, you know, building up those diversion programs, so there's off ramps when young people are in the system. So that's this report, this Youth Justice Work Group, this new Youth Justice Reimagined covers all of that from the front end to diversion. So when you're in the system all the way to reentry, and the 75 million is just a start, but hopefully it's to build up, you know, the community-based organizations and peace builders on the ground.
Hey, thank you, Anthony. Ronnie, I want to switch real different question. The theme of Layup's campaign and work was hashtag Free Our Future. Why hashtag Free Our Future, and how is the future now freer in light of the Board of Supervisors move?
Well, that was internally something we were able to come up with for messaging. We do recognize the power of social media and just the ability to be able to mobilize people just off a hashtag, you know, and we really stand by it. But I do think that the future is now freer in the sense that, you know, we have a definitive answer from the Board of Supervisors saying we are going to move youth out of probation and create this new department, but also in the sense that we're going to be able to play a role in this implementation process to ensure that, you know, those $75 million to jumpstart this infrastructure are being used the way that they're supposed to. You know, we're going to be able to hold county agencies accountable. And I also think that we're a little freer in the sense that we now have a seat at the table. You know, myself and my peers within Layup, we have the ability now to really be heard and without fear of repercussion or fear of retribution.
Thank you, Ronnie. Anthony, you want to answer that same question based on this move by the Board of? So first of all, why hashtag Free Our Future, and how are we more freer now with the Board of Supervisors move?
Yeah, well, I'll say first off, with any good slogan or anything, it has to have a ring to it. So Free Our Future, of all the ones we were thinking of, just had a ring to it because it has 2 F's in it. So Free Our Future, but also because the young people that are going through the system are our future. And sorry for the noise, sorry about that. The young people that are going through the system or might be going through the system, because that's what we invest in, are our future. And so right now, as it looks, our future isn't free and hasn't been free because of how much we spend on incarceration, how many young people get locked up here or just get arrested or go through the system in general here in LA County. And so what we're fighting for is really the future and for the young people that are in now. But a lot of these changes won't really start making an effect until a few years. And so that's our future. And so that's what we're trying to free. And we're trying to get that money from juvenile probation and invest that into youth development. So the future is free, but it's not free. You know, it takes money and it takes resources. And our, you know, I believe Martin Luther King has said, you know, our budgets are, budget documents are like, show our values, you know, as a society. And if we're putting so much money in incarceration, then that's what we're going to get. And so, yeah.
Hey, thank you, Anthony. Presumably the implementation of this work is just beginning, the transition of out of juvenile probation. Melinda, what are some of the main questions you will have to ask youth as they're moved out of probation and into this better system of care?
I just wanted to actually respond quickly to what you had asked earlier about what it means to free our future. And then I can answer your next question. But, we have spent decades and millions of dollars in investing and robbing the potential of young people, right? And when I say robbing the potential, like that is exactly what we do when we incarcerate people, when we, put law enforcement in the back of a classroom in the name of school-based probation, when we surveil young people and their families and their communities, in their communities. And I just think that, in freeing our future, for the first time, we are actually investing in their potential, not robbing them of it. So I just think that's like an important kind of thing to highlight as we talk about how historic this moment is. And I'm sorry, if you could just repeat the question one more time.
So the implementation of this work is just beginning a transition out of juvenile probation. What will be some of the main questions you will ask youth as they're moved into this better system of care?
Sure. I mean, for one, I think it's important that as this process is starting, we don't forget about the hundreds of young people who are currently ensnared in this system, right? It's not like, as someone had said earlier, that juvenile probation no longer exists. It still exists, and it is, alive and well, and it is being well funded. So I think kind of really remembering that there is a lot of healing and repair that needs to be done for the young people who are leaving the system and currently ensnared in it. And I think that needs to be central to the work that we're doing as we try to end this cycle of not just like recidivism, but of like harm and trauma. And in terms of, what else we're asking young people, it's what do they need to heal, right? How do they have the opportunity to heal? What do they want to succeed? What do they need to succeed? But really placing that question in front of them, because for far too long, we have such a paternalistic structure where it's the gatekeepers, the people who are in positions of power who decide what you need, what you want, what would help you, without you ever being able to say what it is that you need. So I think that really needs to remain central to this entire process, is that community gets to answer for themselves. And I think that the other thing that really needs to be a focus is this idea of oversight accountability and really transparency. Because I think that probation for far too long has kind of existed behind this cloak where it's unclear where these dollars are going. It's unclear what's being invested in, if anything, especially in light of, what's happening during this pandemic. So I just think that really needs to be central to what we're investing in and what we're asking of this new system and on behalf of young people.
Thank you, Melinda. And I kind of want to just, because Kent mentioned this, Anthony kind of touched on it. So ultimately, and Ronnie said it. So one, no fear of repercussion, being able to speak out. That's one. Like every person that lives in our community should be able to go to the Board of Supervisors and say, this is unfair, and not worry about being chastised for saying it's unfair. Two, in terms of transparency with how dollars are spent. How's our money being spent? And not just for and this is bigger conversation for our listeners, not just for our probation system. It brings to mind something Kent said. No, Anthony actually said it. The number of youth in probation has shrunk, but the budget has grown. Sounds like another department, and I'll say the Department of Corrections. 91,000 people, I believe we're at, from a height of 178,000. And every year the budget has increased. I think it's 16 billion or close to 16 billion right now with a B. Those dollars, just as we're talking about reimagining the youth probation department, taking youth out of that and then taking that money and investing in our youth, that should be something, a roadmap, not just for LA and not just for the county of LA, but we should be looking at it across the state when we look at our carceral system. So the three young people that are here right now, You're trailblazing in other ways that will literally touch on other areas of criminal justice reform. When you're talking about changing a system and making it one of care and one that actually develops the individuals, the human beings that are inside. So just know, like, your trailblazing efforts will touch on other areas. So I just want you to think in those terms. LA is one thing, California is another, and then our nation. So don't limit yourself. Keep pushing. I wanted to jump to Kent on the same question I just asked Melinda. What are some of the questions that you would ask? Because Kent, you're getting older now, so you're not a teenager anymore. But what are some of the questions you would ask some of the young people that as they transition out of this carceral probation punitive system into this one of development and care? What are some of the questions that you would ask them that they need?
I would ask them, like, what do they like to do? What did they like to do before being incarcerated? The reason why is because I think it goes back to the point of the money that is being invested in systems and what Millie was talking about. For example, when I was incarcerated from the age of 15 to 20, the system was actually investing in me. They were putting money to put me in a cell for those 5 years. And if you accumulate all that money that was invested in my incarceration for that 5 years, it's probably like $1 million, a little bit more than $1 million, right? So, I would say that we need to ask what they want and what did they like to do before being incarcerated. What did you do before? What things, activities, fun things that you did before you were incarcerated? Why? Because those are things you need to start tapping into as soon as you get out of jail. The reason I say this is because, I go back to my experience when I was before joining gangs, before experimenting with drugs, all those things at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10. I used to love to draw. I used to love movies. I used to love a lot of things that any youth would like, right? But because we live in communities and we have systems in place that don't allow us to pursue that, whether it's art, whether it's me wanting to be a professional skater because I love skating or whatever it is, right? There's no real avenues for those things when you're Black and brown and you live in poor communities where the schools are not well invested and there's high police. You never get to reach those things, and then you end up in the system like me at 15 for 5 years, and you never learn nothing in the system. You learn about yourself, and it kind of like, the system teaches you that you're a bad person and that you need to change yourself, when they never teaches you, like, Ken, you actually can do this and become a professional artist. I don't know. So I would say that we need to ask our youth, what are the things that you love to do right now? Because we would love to invest in those things. We need to find out what do our youth love to do, what do they want to do, and then build off that, not determine what we think they need. I think asking them what they need and how can we best support them. So at the end of the day, we could reach the ultimate, the better versions of themselves, which all of us can be better versions of ourselves. All of us can be anything we want. We just need right systems, right supports and guidances in place. And I think that's what we're talking about right here. So just asking them what they want and what do they want to do, and let's just build off that and just invest in their talents in fun things they like to do. And you never know, you might find a superstar because we're invested in that and every single youth. Thank you, Kent.
I want to share something that's in our chat box. It says, I do love the ARC. I do love what the ARC team is doing. You're constantly amazed and impressed. Bob Holtz, Correctional Education Association. So correction, that association is nationwide. But what I want to point out is we also have the California Children's Defense Fund that's weighing in here. Youth Justice Coalition and Urban Peace Institute. So we ARC is part of a coalition. And I want to always lift our partners up. It's not just ARC doing this. When we get together, it's a collection of other organizations that work together, and all of our members come together as a coalition and team up, because this system, one organization or one person cannot change this system. It will take a collective of all of us working together in harmony with young people leading and empowering young people and making sure that young people have the ability to be able to step into that position and be able to change this system that directly affects them. So just shout out our partners and switch questions. And this question, I'm gonna go first to you, Anthony. We've been having this discussion in the middle of a pandemic, COVID-19. And as we speak on behalf of youth in custody and juvenile probation, almost all are on quarantine right now. I know I talked to one of the young men that I mentor inside Ventura DJJ and the entire facility, Stockton, OH, Chad, Ventura. Almost all of them are quarantined right now because of outbreaks. And so what are your biggest concerns right now around this, and what can be done? I will say one of the things that we just did yesterday was send a letter to the governor with a number of organizations that signed on, asking the governor to make the vaccine available in the first phase to people that are in custody. But also asking that if people in custody choose not to use the vaccine, for them not to be punished for that, but to make it available. So Anthony, if you want to weigh in on that question, what can be done, and what are your concerns?
Yeah, I think I'll start with the concerns. The concern is just the health and safety of young people inside. And then also when you're quarantining through this whole pandemic, people aren't getting visits, people aren't getting proper education. Not that it's ever proper, but you know, there's very limited human contact in a place where there's very limited human contact already. And so just mental health is a huge concern. And just overall, I think just the well-being of the people, the young people inside. It's a scary time for everybody. Even out here, people are stressed. So, you know, all that stress only compounds when you're inside, and you can't see your family. And when you're a young person, you need support. You need those connections. And to do this is just inhumane, especially during a pandemic. These young people could be let out. And so I think what should be done is that young people should be let out and with their families. But what could be done, what do we have to do to try to get there? When the pandemic was flaring up earlier in the year, when it first came around, you know, we're having the meetings. We're trying to pressure all kinds of county players, county actors, like the inspector general, trying to get the board's attention, trying to get the courts involved, trying to get probation, trying to reach out to probation, who was very unresponsive to most of the requests and everything, and so were the courts. So I think letters is important. Letter to the state, get the DOJ involved if we can. Like, I think we have to pretty much do anything we can, and because right now it's serious and it's scary, and the well-being, the health of young people inside is, I can't imagine how bad it is right now, and how just stressed out people are. So I think letters. I remember earlier in the year, you know, people are doing car actions. Maybe it's another action we have to do, whatever we have to do to make sure that that our voices are heard, and that these concerns are brought to light, and that something is to get done. So I'm happy to, Layup right now is starting to talk about this issue and figuring out what to do. And so, you know, just whatever we can think of, I'm happy to just keep talking and figuring out like what we need to do to get young people out. You know, I think that's the main goal, just to get people out. But whatever it may be, the best solutions that we can find, you know, we have to work together. Like you said, it's not one person and one org that's going to do this. And it's going to take, you know, community, family members, from the incarcerated people. So, yeah.
Hey, thank you, Anthony. Kind of pressed for time. So wanted to ask a question from our panel before, because I was going to go around, but I think this is a good question, and it's come up a couple of times from our people that are watching. In what way do you believe the education system failed you? So give me a 1 minute thoughts on that. Ronnie first, then Kent, and then you, Anthony.
Inside or outside?
Both.
Well, just inside, not having access to higher education was really detrimental for me. I had to fight. I had to go to court to get a court order just to receive a college education. So just putting that into perspective, you know, 17-year-old kid having to fight for his education while inside. That speaks onto itself. But in the community, just being labeled a troublemaker, a kid that's not worth their teacher's time, really dissuaded me from going to school. And, you know, I've now found higher education, and I realize how important it is in my transformation. But the education system currently in place is just as punitive as probation, and sees us just as bad as probation does.
Thank you, Ronnie. Kent, take a quick minute. What ways do you believe the education system failed you?
For me, I would say it started in elementary. As someone that came from Mexico, didn't know how to speak or read in English. For all my elementary years, I felt not supported. There was, I was actually labeled a troublemaker because I couldn't do my homework, despite not knowing how to write or read in English. There was nothing in place to support me in that challenge. So I was in class all the time from 1st grade to 5th grade, just dealing with feeling like outcasts, not confident, all those things, they mess with your mind. So by the time I hit middle school, you become a rebel, and that's why you join gangs and all those things, every other factor. So I think that's how it felt me, that I was never given real quality education from elementary. I didn't even learn how to read, proper reading, until I was actually in juvenile hall. So I would say that's how it felt me. I felt like it started in elementary. And so if it would have, my confidence and my self-esteem is what led to me to do bad things as a teenager too. So I think that's how it affected me in the bad way, and how it affected me in the positive way. I discovered passion for reading books, when I was incarcerated, unfortunately, when I was incarcerated. But one thing that I do value about education, and I always encourage all my young people that are working with me or who are just in the movement or doing whatever, is like, go to school, man, because school, for people that are returning home from incarceration, it helps, it helps build character. It helps you, it gives you some skills. But I'm not going to say that school is the only way for you to succeed in life. But it is crucial to reentry and in these types of models that we're talking about.
Thank you. Anthony, take a quick minute. What ways would you say that the education system failed you?
Yeah, for me, it's interesting. When I started elementary school and I was like 2nd and 3rd grade, they put me in the GATE program because I would score high in the test and all that. So that was like a college-bound program. But soon after, like 4th, 5th grade, my father was arrested, incarcerated, and deported. Left my mom, on her own. We became homeless. My mom was trying to raise 3 kids on her own. Then my brother would eventually, who's older than me, get incarcerated, go to camp. And so my family was just being torn apart by the system, and I started struggling in school. I stopped coming a lot in junior high. I stopped going. When I was there, I was always messing around or just fooling around or talking in class. My grades were suffering. And the only one time they ever showed care was when they sent me to the school psychologist, but she made me feel like there was something wrong with me, like there's something wrong with my head or I'm crazy. And when she told me what I was telling her was confidential, she lied, and she told my mom everything I told her. And so that just broke all my trust in any adults in schools. And so I think there wasn't just enough support, and they never asked me how I was doing or what I liked. They never really helped me pursue my passion. That's just a short version of that.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you. Could each of you, starting with Melinda, take 1 minute and give your closing thoughts? Thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for joining, and thank you for the work that you're doing for our youth. Melinda, take a minute for closing thoughts for our audience.
Sure. First of all, former public school teacher here, and I can tell you for a fact that, I feel like I was personally responsible for failing so many young people. We just didn't know what we were doing, and the school, the system's response to anyone who's misbehaving is push them out of the classroom. I was a teacher in the Bronx, but I imagine it's no different. So I really feel for those people, for all of the young people who've been let down by this system that's supposed to support you and build you up and develop what it is that you are passionate about. And in terms of closing thoughts, the work is just beginning. That this is certainly a win, but we are at the very, very, very beginning. Because despite the best of intentions, it's all about implementation. It's all about creating accountability. It's all about demanding. It's all about seeing it through. And so, as Nicole said before she left, I encourage all of you who are watching and who are listening that, your voice is probably the most crucial to all of this. Your experience is the data behind why the system has failed, because the system has not kept any data. Probation doesn't have data. It's their kind of easy way of washing their hands. We don't track that. And so your stories and your experience is what has created this movement and what has allowed us to get to where we are, but we are not done, and we need you for this next phase.
Thank you so much for that, Melinda. Kent, can you take a minute, closing thoughts for our audience, please?
Yeah, thanks. Sam, and thanks everybody for this amazing panel, and thanks everybody who joined us for this to listen to us. I hope we gave you some insight on something important and amazing that's happening in the county. But I would just say that we just continue. Everybody, please just if you have any youngster, any young people that's with you, working with you, just remind them that they do have the potential, and use your voice, like Millie says. A lot of things that we do in layup, like showing up at the County Board of Supervisors to provide public comment, showing up at the cluster meetings at the local level, like all these things that you probably don't know what I'm talking about. These are things that are available in every community, in every county, and every, there's spaces where we can make our voices be heard. And, a lot of people weren't doing these things, and are not doing these things. So just, if there's opportunity for you to make your voice be heard, I would encourage you to make it heard, because, it will be heard, and it will, whatever you demand for will happen, and I say that because we've been doing that for the past, at least years, showing up to all these meetings where nobody wants to show up to provide public comment, provide, virtual, all these things that are tiring and, some not very attractive sometimes, because it's like, just a lot of work, but it's important work. So I just encourage you all to, find a way to be involved in your community, because it's crucial, and and all of our stories matter. And especially if you're Black and brown, we need to make our voices be heard in our cities and our county, just to, ensure that we check the folks that are supposed to be providing quality life for us and running these cities and counties for us. So just I encourage you all to just be involved and support the young people around you, and remind them that they will have potential and that they could be great people in their lives. So yeah, that's my message to all.
Thank you, Kent. Ronnie, could you take a minute, last thoughts before we close out today for our audience?
Echoing what everybody said. The work has just begun. The implementation process is still to happen. This system is set to be done within 5 years from now. So, there's still lots of battles, a lot of legal changes that need to happen as well. So, the grittiness of the work, it's going to continue. Like Kent has said, we're in spaces that people do not want to be in. The long, tedious meetings, waiting hour, 2 hours just to make public comment. But, our voices really matter. And I really want to encourage, ARC fam and people who watch this, show up and let your voice be heard, because the power is within us. We hold the power to change these systems.
Thank you, Ronnie. Anthony, last thoughts for our audience, please.
Yeah, let's keep it simple. This is what happens when community is empowered and directly impacted people are leading the work. We're allowed to lead the work. We get these big changes, we get these big wins, and this progress for our people. So, that's what I would want to leave everybody with, is just, the people that are, impacted by an issue are the ones that have the solutions. And, we need to make sure that they're empowered and are leading the work on any issue. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. Thanks for having me. ARC, thank you, Millie and UPI and everybody that participated. And, like Ronnie said, we have some work to do, but we have a strong coalition, stronger than we've ever been. And we're being led by some great people. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you for the work that you put in. And I'll echo what everyone on this panel has said. Join in and make sure that your voice is heard. Whether you show up personally at a Board of Supervisors meeting, write a letter, call your representative, your voice is powerful, but you have to be involved. You have to be involved. So please take the time to make sure that you're aware of the changes that need to be made, and then find organizations like the Urban Peace Institute or the Children's Defense Fund of ARC or Youth Justice Coalition, and get involved and say, how can I support? Where can I write a letter? Ask the questions. I want to tell everybody again, thank you for participating. These are some amazing leaders, amazing human beings that I appreciate. Kent, I better get a t-shirt like that one, or I'm yeah, make sure I get a t-shirt. And then for next week, ARC will have George Gascon on our show so we can talk about the changes that are coming that will also impact juveniles that are in the system. Again, thank you everyone for attending. We'll be back here next week. If you want contact information for any of the organizations that were on this panel, please take a look at your screen. And until next week, take care, God bless, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.